let's take a look today at kind of an idea of drawing some things with some interesting textures. I'd like to take a look at moss and lichen. And these are, when I was working on my Sierra Nevada field guide, the lichen were brutal. I had so many false starts on lichen, and but I learned a bunch of tricks and strategies that really helped me. So I'll be sharing some of those with you, and also we'll take a look at moss. And on moss, there are some really cool structures that will pop up to produce spores. And those will be different on different species. But one of the things that's really hard about drawing moss is just the texture of the moss and making it look mossy. And how do you go about that? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bounce over to a share screen with you. And on one side, we're going to look at some photographs. So I'm just going to do a search on Google image search for moss. And surprisingly enough, all these pictures of moss came up. And so we're going to look at those. And also then on the other side, we'll have a drawing tablet out, and we'll look at how we could transfer some of those textures and things that we're seeing over onto the other page. And then we'll take a look at lichen. And I'll show you some ways that I found some of my lichen sheets. Let's go there now. All right, here we go. So here's a bunch of moss. Moss treatment. Oh boy, are you being mean to moss over there? I don't know. So here is some moss. I'm going to take that image. Actually, here's a trick that I suggest that people do when you're doing an image search. Go to more, oops, not more, go to images and tools. There it is, under tools. And you get this thing that says size. Go for large size ones. And that way, when you click to enlarge on any of these images, you won't get these tiny thumbnails. So that makes makes things a lot easier for you. That looks nice and mossy. And let's start with, actually, let's start with this. Oh, you gave me a thumbnail. Say, that's what I didn't want. Just as saying, you won't get that. We did. We'll try again. Let's go for this and see if you are a larger thing. Show me the moss. There we go. All right, so here is this. Now you're first thinking, oh, what on earth do I do here? Right. So my approach to drawing this is, if I get in here and I try to draw a pencil line around each one of these little structures, I'm going to go nuts when I get past an area larger than this. Then you get tired of drawing all these little weird spiky forms. And but there's two things I want you to notice about this. One is, first, there's a sense of spiky forms. I want to get that in my drawing. The other thing that I want is these little darks. You see these little dark areas in here, like that little triangle of darkness right there. I want to get these little dark divots. And by punching those in as a dark value, they will the whole thing will feel as if it has depth to it. So I want to get a sense of the spikies, and I'm also going to want to really punch in some dark values. So let's take a look at one way of suggesting this. And I've got myself a pencil here. This is a 0.5 millimeter mechanical pencil, and I've got some rather soft lead in it. So I'm going to first just sort of start with a larger area. One thing that you might do on your clump of moss is to initially do an enlargement of part of it. So if I want to show that this structure has all these little spiky things, but don't want to go nuts, I'm just going to cut off, I'm going to sort of kind of frame out a little nugget of this. This has some bumps in the inside here, and I'm starting kind of in an area like this. And I'm going to slowly circle out. So start with this stuff here, then I'm going to put in this, and then I'm going to put in this. Why this one before this one? Because this one is on top of this one. So I'm going from what is closer to me first, and then what is further away second, so that I can sort of tuck those things in behind. So there's a little pointy thing that comes off here. There is a little, let's zoom down here. There we are. So I've got a little pointy bit, and I can make it lighter along its edges by putting a little bit of dark shading into the middle of it. If I want these things to sort of feel like they have kind of glowing edges, then I put the shadow in not touching the edges. And then this one tucks in behind those. And then I can swing around, and then there's somebody else sticking out here. What I want to avoid is all of these little ones being the same size. I want to get the sense of sort of regularly irregular. I don't want it to feel, all these little bumps, same size. So in addition to that, the spaces, I don't want even spacing out here. I want some places where there is a big space and some places where there's a little space. So if you start with with this enlargement, that's going to allow people to sort of imagine whatever texture you put in there throughout your whole drawing. And now, what else can I put in here? There's another one that is down here. And then in the background, there's sort of, I'm just going to, and here sort of randomly put in a jumble of other kind of overlapping mossy shapes here. I'm not really even looking at the screen right now. I'm just sort of putting these down as different sort of shapes in there. And then on the edges of some of those, I'm going to put in some of these. Here's a little dark I'm going to put in. And then I'm going to put another little dark right in here. I'm going to put another dark in here. So I'm putting some darks around the edges of these little shapes that are back here. So I've got here, I'm going to put a dark in here. I'm going to put a dark
in here, and I'm going to put a medium, put a dark in here. Here I'm going to put a big dark. I don't want all my darks to be the same size. Here I'm going to make this all dark. I'm going to make this a dark in here, dark in here. So again, in that background area, what I was doing is I was just sort of randomly throwing in a bunch of little dark, little kind of overlapping kind of pointy pieces. And then I just came in and put some darks in between some of those. Because I'd drawn that little thing along here, like this little light zone lines up with that other one and then feels like something kind of going across. Right. And then I can come in with just hatching like this on some of these. And leave others white. And then you get the sense that, oh, there are these different layers. So there's the ones that are white, those are on top. There are ones that have hatching on them, those are a little bit further back. And then there are others that are even further back in those little dark corners. And that kind of gives you this sense of mossiness. I'm going to put a little kind of pointer arrow into the zone where we'll be drawing. And so that will then feel like this is an enlargement of what we're seeing in here. If I put in values like this with watercolor, I can also come across this with graphite. I can come across it with just a coat of watercolor. When that dries, I will do one other little thing to it, but I'm going to first just let it dry. The colors that I'm using in that, this is phthalo yellow green, which is a really bright, vivid green. Because it takes phthalocyanine and just mixes it with a little bit of yellow. You can mix your others, you can mix that yourself if you don't have that. If you have phthalo blue, which is cyan, you can take some phthalo blue and put that out on your paper, clean your brush so you don't dip a dirty brush into your yellow, and then go get some yellow. And you can see that you can get, really vivid, bright greens. So phthalo blue is a great thing for making vivid greens. Then I'll maybe take some serpentine. Oh, nope, that's not my serpentine. That was my hooker's green. I'm going to take some serpentine genuine, which is another kind of nice, more mossy color. I can put that into some of the kind of lower areas to make those ones on the top feel a little bit brighter. All right. Now I'm going to let that dry. So that kind of, I've got a sense of pointiness in there, and I've got a sense of those little nuggets, those divots of darkness. And then I'm going to suggest that I'm going to have a clump of moss here, or a clump of moss. And I want this to sort of feel like this is the texture. Oops, we're off the page. I'm going to be drawing this sort of clump of moss. And I want the people to sort of think there's this texture on that. So one way that I get that is, again, by having this enlargement and then saying, like, look, that's what's going on here. This says to people, this is that. Okay. So one way I can suggest the texture of this, let's actually zoom out here. And actually, let's go for a moss picture that is more side view of mossiness. View image. All right, so look at these clumps of moss. These ones, it's a different species. The leaf-like parts are longer on this. But I want you to notice the general kind of appearance, what's going on here. You have these clumps. There's a clumpiness going on. And look at what is going on with the lights and darks. The edges of these clumps here, we're seeing a little bit of yellow, green, and lighter value in these edges here. See how the little things going along these areas of lighter value right along the edge. Then you kind of come into a core color, and then that drops into a shadow. The shadow then abuts against the top of the next clump. So the bottom of this shadow is really making the top edge of this. So these little spikes here, we're seeing those because they're against this dark shadow. But what happens, what we tend to do when we're drawing the shadow down here is we're drawing our shadow in. We're thinking about we're drawing our shadow. We're not really concentrating on the fact that we're actually creating the texture of the top of this clump. And that's really important. And you see that sort of the same thing kind of coming in here more subtly. We're kind of coming against not a big dark shadow zone, but the tops of these are formed by the bottom of this shadow zone. So as you're coming down with a shadow on the bottom parts of these clumps, you're simultaneously forming the shape, the volume of this clump, and the texture of the top edge of the next clump. And that, once you sort of realize those two things, when you can be in here sort of drawing shadow, but when you kind of get into here, your brain needs to switch over to creating the negative shapes between all these little nuggets down in here. So let's try that here. So we're gonna have a clump that comes down here, here, and here. On the top edge of this, sorry, my big hand in the way. I am going to I'm going to make a sort of line of little marks that are, these sort of feel like they are, how can we get, let's see if we can focus this just a little bit more. Okay, that's a better focus. And I am going to try to turn off the autofocus so it doesn't focus on my hand. Select camera, resolution, exposure, manual balance. Where is manual focus? There we go. There we are. So now let's see, good. So it's now, we're focused on that part here. In this part of this clump, you've got sort of edges of, your moss coming in here. But in this area, in here, as I make a little mark, that could be suggesting one of these little moss blades sticking up. But in here, on this surface here, what it is the shadow next to a moss blade. So as I am creating this, I want to think of, I'm going to do this first a little bit larger out here. Instead of thinking like I have, here's one glass blade, here's the next little blade of moss. So I'm not going to be drawing in the little pieces of moss. What I want to be thinking about is I'm going to be drawing the edge of the black space around those little moss pieces. And I want this, so these little nuggets between, the negative shapes between my marks are going to be what is going to be the top edges of those little mossy bits. So if I just go like this, right, and then put shadow up against that, a lot of these end up being so thin that they don't really show up. So I want to be leaving more white space between these. And that is going to allow me then to have those show up as my little kind of clumps of mossiness. And as I'm going to go up here on this surface here, I am going to start to stipple out. I'm drawing in some of those sort of dark spaces between so coming down here, I want to make sure that on this top edge, I am leaving enough white space between some of these little darks that they will show up in against that little shadow. So I get that top edge. This approach, by the way, also works for drawing grasses. You just have a different, texture up here, but making these things longer, it feels like grasses. But here, my little marks are little kind of dots and things. So I feel like I'm kind of getting these sort of little dark nuggets, these little sort of dark spaces between these marks. Then I can the nice thing about putting the watercolor on this instead of colored pencil is that colored pencil sometimes tends to smudge your, the colored pencil can really smudge your graphite pencil. While this is damp, I can take and add a few little kind of dark marks into that as well, and they will bleed out a little bit. Another thing that I can do is add some splatter effects in here. And that adds sort of a lovely little sort of randomness to it. If you don't like having your splatter effects also out here, you can put something down there that masks them, like a Post-it with a goofy face. And then when you splatter, you won't get it into that zone. Another thing you can do is just sort of always come along afterwards and take those dots that are out there in the place you don't want to be textured and just hit them with a little bit of water and turn it into just a slight light green blush that's back there. That would be one way of suggesting some of that mossiness. I think I want to see if I can play with a little bit of extra dark in here. That might look neat. Yeah, I like the way that came out. Just having that dark in there makes the light part of it feel brighter and lighter. Contrast makes things feel, something can feel bright because there's something dark that's next to it. So if I put some real dark right in there, then that other edge feels really bright. Let's take a look at a different bit of mossiness. No, I need to moss again. Moss images, moss.
Moss. I need to go back. Tools. Get me large moss. Large moss. Large moss. Here's an interesting texture. Let's look at this. Suspiciously more lichen-y. So if I were trying to draw something with this texture, I think they've got a lichen here rather than a moss. I think they have then
we're gonna just, it's fun to just play with a little bit of texture on something. It's going to be those sort of dark divots. Those dark divots that really define this shape. I'm going to give it a little bit of a now, as I'm making these little marks here, I want to try to leave, normally when I'm drawing something, this line that I make is the edge of the object. The black you would include, like let's say there's a little bird here. The black line is the edge of the bird. When you're doing something like this, again, the black line is the edge of the shadow that is next to the bird. Because if I'm going to be filling all this in, then you don't see that black line. So if I draw something like this, where I have, like, here's this really kind of fine structures that are kind of coming out like this, if that's the shape that I want to show, and then I fill all this other part in dark, I lose my object. So when I'm thinking this way, I have to imagine that I'm drawing around the object, so that then when I fill in stuff around that, when you first do it, it feels too thick, because your brain is going, oh, the line is part of the object. But what I want to do is get something like this. So as I am kind of coming into an area like this and drawing in, I'm going to draw these sort of awkwardly thick little branchy structures. And the reason that I do that is that there's going to be dark that gets filled in around the edges of these. And I want those to feel as dark. So you have to kind of make these, if you're trying to draw a little finger-like structure, you have to make it a little bit too thick. And sort of think as if your goal is the texture or the shape on the inside of your line, and you want that to read, not the little shape that is on, not the outside of your line. And then I'm going to get in here, I'm going to make some big spaces, some little spaces. And also I'm going to make some of my little kind of holes and divots lighter colored, others are darker. You can even have some holes. There's a lighter hole that has a darker hole in part of it. Sometimes just a pattern like that turned green. Can feel mossy. Now that this character up here is dry, I'm also going to come back on top of it, and I've got a white gel pen. And I'm just going to put a little bit of white along the edge of this and tap it with my finger to make it a little bit less light. Draw a little line in here, tap it on the edge, a little bit of a highlight in here, here. I'm going to tap this one towards the end here. I want this to be a stronger white line, so I'm going to let that be in there. This one in the back, I'm going to have it be lighter, so I tap it. And I'm letting this line be kind of a little bit more of an inconsistent thing because I want it, if there's just sort of a hard white outline on all these edges, it's going to feel really jarring. But if it's a little bit more kind of come and go, that's going to feel a little bit better. Another thing that's fun to do with gel pen, let's say I don't want it to be bright white, but maybe it had more of a yellowish edge to it. You can actually tint the color of gel pen. Pushes it back. And if there's part that you don't like let's say I feel like this feels like too just harsh and strong, gel pen is water soluble. So I can come across here with my brush and really fade that out. Maybe I want a little bit more gel pen edge right in here. Okay. That's a little bit of mossy texture. And let's just go for, remember the other day we had an eagle nest with a bunch of clumps of moss in it. And so if I'm just trying to get that, you can one other thing I probably should mention on this is, so you're going to have this little edge here. Oops, we're off the screen. Well, where did we go? Oh, come on back. Come on back. Everybody come on back. There we go. There we are. Check this out. I want you to think of this as a thing with where there's some kind of clumps of moss that are kind of wrapping up this surface towards you and then kind of rocking away from you. So if some of the kind of the holes in the moss on this side, I can make those, here they are, I'm sort of drawing them as larger, kind of more roundish holes. But as I'm getting up on the surface here, I'm going to turn those into more kind of horizontal lines. Because there you're not looking down, here you're looking on the side and into the hole, and here you're looking across the top of it. It's sort of another thing I can do with some of those moss marks to. So that's down here, I can put in a big one. Up here, I'm going to put in a little more horizontal. And that's just going to make it feel like that surface edge is rocking away from you. So on this edge that's towards me, let's look into some of these holes here. And then we are now on the flat surface up here. So diagrammatically, I have a ball of moss, and you're seeing the top part of it. A hole that you're seeing here in the moss, you're going to be looking straight down on. And as you're looking up here, you're now looking more at an oval mark because it's down on a surface that's turning away from you. And one that is up here would be even more so. So having that little model in my head as I'm playing with that.
Let's take a little look at Lichen. Tools. Tools. Oh, images. There we go. Images, tools. Size, large. Let's take a look at one of these crustose lichen forms, right? And then we'll do one of these other sort of more foliose forms. But let's take a look at this little crustose lichen here and see if this gets us close enough to get good detail on it. Oh, that's beautiful. So up close, you start geeking out on lichen, and they are these crazy, crazy patterns. So there are like some lines that are going through it, and then things are sort of breaking off into smaller pieces that are then broken into sub-smaller pieces. And this is not something to draw when you're in a hurry. This zone up here, this is really cool. Look at this, all these little sections. So if you're feeling calm and meditative, you can absolutely just bliss out in something like this. But if you're feeling hasty, you might find this a frustrating experience. So just sort of notice your energy level. And if you are, it's sort of like stipple. You don't want to do stipple drawings when you are feeling like I need results now, right? But let's just, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just draw, I'm going to start in one. Actually, I'm going to switch pencils. See if this pencil is darker. Oh, yeah. See what I just did? Oh, yeah. Okay, now I'm happy. I just switched from an HB pencil, which was making marks like this dark, to a 2B pencil, which makes marks like that dark. And so when I'm putting these darks in, they're going to feel much more dark. And I don't have to copy it spot by spot. But what I want to do is to kind of get the general sense
spots, and that like sometimes, you know, I'm seeing some of these little guys in lines, and other times I'm seeing them, you know, here, this one's going to be kind of dumbbell shaped. And then remember that you are not, that your line is not the edge of the spot. Your line is part of the black that surrounds the spot. And if you're feeling just sort of calm and are blissing out with things like this, you know, this can be fun to do. Now, this is going to sort of morph into a zone where we're going to get larger. When you're looking at lichens, get in there with your magnifying glass, or turn your binoculars around and look at the structure that it has. Here, this is what's really helping me get this, is that I have a pencil that allows me to push these real darks. So some places it feels like there are islands, and then the islands kind of come together. Other places it feels like it is a crust with cracks in it. So let's take a look at that. So first, I'm going to put this, has this whole lichen zone has a black edge around it. And that black edge is slightly bumpy and irregular. One way to kind of help yourself manage drawing some lichen textures is to give yourself like a little zone that you're going to, of the so I'm going to erase a little corner of this box. Put that down here. That is pointing to this little box that is then on the rock. So here's a little rock with lichen on it. But because I put this box in, I don't feel as overwhelmed. Oh no, I've got all this area that I somehow need to cover. How am I going to handle that? Let's put it yellow, green. And over here is this zone that is more kind of crusty. But it also has that neat black boundary to it. I think those are different kinds of lichen. Lichen are a combination of a fungus and an algae that are in a symbiotic mutualistic relationship. The or possibly a parasitic relationship. But the lichen is it's a combination of two organisms. So when it reproduces, it has to figure out, some way of how are you going to get these lichen spores. I mean, sometimes they'll create these little things that are a package of fungal hyphae with around a little nugget of algae, and it'll be a combination packet. Also, the fungus can reproduce on its own. So you sometimes see these, cool. Let's take a look. What do the cracks do? So the cracks they come out and they peter out before they get to the edge of these things. But then on the inside here, I'm now going to go for regularly irregular. In this, line variation is going to be your friend. That's something that Ray Bonto is really, really good at. If you look at a lot of Ray Bonto's lines, it's not just like a hard line. Sometimes it's lighter lines, sometimes it's harder lines. Sometimes there's a variable line that comes and goes. So if some of these are places where you're kind of punching that line in a little bit, and other places you are making it a more light ghost line, that's going to really help what you are, kind of the look of what you're doing. In some places, let's say you've got a thing that kind of some meat like that, kind of a neat thing like right there. See that little dot? And that little dot right there, sometimes what I'll do is at these little junctions, you can just kind of give it a little bit more dark right in there. And that can give you a cool effect. That's called snodgrassing, when you have these lines with a little accent point where they meet. You actually see a little bit of snodgrassing right there. There's a little bit of snodgrassing as that line comes in and meets.
Could you please move over the page a little?
Stop.
Thank you.
So I'm put a little bit of snodgrass in here where this comes in. Kind of a neat place to put just a little bit of emphasis in that line. I think we need a little bit more color up in there. That chartreusey green is a beautiful, beautiful color. And so I want to test my colors. Is that it? No, it's more yellow than that. I'm going to get some yellow on my brush. I have here in the corner of my green palette, I've got a glob of yellow paint. That way I don't have to take a dirty brush and stick it into my yellow. I can come get some yellow, test that off there. That's closer. All right. So here's the beady. beady texture and crack texture. And my question is, are they the same lichen? Not sure. So that's a little bit of strategy on drawing some lichens, drawing some moss, getting some of those textures. For the mossy, for these little texture things, sometimes just doing a little kind of sampler piece where you kind of give yourself time just to bliss out and zen out with it is going to be a lot easier than trying to wrap texture over a great big boulder, because that you run into the same problem. You run into the same problem that you run in drawing a forest. And you draw a hyper detailed tree, and then you draw the next tree next to it, and the next tree next to it, and you're doing a great big page of those. You get sick of drawing pages, and it's not also really efficient for field sketching. Sometimes you can do something like that in the studio, where you've got all your climate controlled conditions and no mosquitoes are biting. But drawing a detailed rock with all the lichen on it might drive you nuts in the field. Another thing we could look at another time is this is where I'm trying to, my goal is to, I'm trying to really like show that texture. There are some ways of just using even wet watercolor with colors that bleed, that kind of give you some fast lichen-like effects. And we can, I can show you that, another time. But I hope that this was a useful little dive into playing with some mossy textures and licheny textures. It's really neat to kind of drop into those little the world of bryozoans and it's or of not of bryozoans, of bryophytes and the mosses and the lichens. They're fun. They're fun. And I hope that this gave you some strategies to play with them. What I'd like to do now is just to find out if there are any thoughts or questions that people had about the techniques that I've just been showing that you have about sort of messing around with these textures. Let me go over to my gallery view. If you've got any questions on that, all you have to do is just raise your hand and I will see that you've got a thought or a comment about mossy textures and things. And you can also use the raise hand function. And not seeing any, there we go. Susan, let me allow you to mute. And now I'm going to bring you in as Spotlight. Hi there.
Hi. I was just thinking about that. I don't know. Was it a moss or a lichen, the one that had the very branchy kind of texture that you were doing?
The very branchy one. It was listed as a moss in there, but it looked to me like a lichen that had been dyed green, like they do very often.
That makes
or
sense.
They call it moss. That people like in model railroads. They will take lichen, they'll dye it green, and sell it as moss for making trees in model railroads. That's what I think we may have been looking at there.
Well, so I was thinking, I was wondering if it was there a reason that you didn't try doing that, like putting a dark background and then trying to do like gouache or something to do that? Because it seems like you could sort of build up the sort of like darker ones in the background and then build up some of the higher ones with the lighter colors. But I haven't actually tried gouache yet. I watched your sessions on that, and I'm like working up the courage to give it a go. But yeah, but I mean, is there a reason you didn't, other than just that you had the watercolors out, or?
Not a lot of people have gouache in their home kit at this point, so I was doing stuff with things that I thought that people would have at home. But yes, you can use an opaque paint like that for give yourself a dark background, and then you can draw light on top of it. That would also work really well.
I mainly just need an excuse to get some more watercolor or some more art supplies. You know.
No, that's true.
Thank you.
But that would work well. That would work well. Oh, and also reminds me of, since we're just sort of talking about lichens, and you mentioned gouache, there's one problem that I run into with lichens, and I hit it like for some reason when I try to mix that, you know, a lot of those lichens that are sort of very pale green, you see them hanging from trees. That color gives me the dickens of a time when I try to match that color. And so I want to show, because you mentioned gouache, and that's actually my secret way of kind of getting around that problem. Again, this super light green, I don't want to say moss green because we're talking about a lichen, and the lichen would feel upset. But that really light green color, check this out for drawing or for getting that color, and it involves gouache. So for people who don't have experience with gouache, gouache is like watercolor, but it's much more opaque. That means you can't really see through it like a transparent watercolor. But I'll just bounce back to that page, and I'll first show you the problem.
So the problem is I've drawn some moss, some lichen, and I then want to color it in. And so if I get my normally what we do with, let's zoom down, chunk. Let's zoom down. Let's move the camera down. There we go. So here we go. I get some green, but I want it to be the right. This on my computer screen is kind of looking okay for a lichen color, but the one I'm seeing on my real pad here in front of me it's just a little bit too. It's a little bit too intense. So I dilute that more by adding more water to it. I then get this, it's more of an anemic thing. It's really hard for me to get those colors. So what I do very often for, let's come up here for handling this, is I have in part of my palette, I have some globs of white gouache. And what I'll do is I'll take a little bit of green. So this is, here I'm taking some oxide of chromium, which is it's a kind of an olive greeny color. But I'm going to mix that with this white gouache. And it is going to then make this light mossy green color that for some reason is much easier for me to work with. Sometimes when I'm drawing sagebrush, I'll do the same thing. If I want that kind of sagey green color, it is for some reason really easy to make by mixing some of my greens with the white paint. And I know that there's all these people saying like, well, you should just be able to do that by adding more water to it. But kind of getting that sweet spot and having it, this just for some reason is a lot easier for me to work with. So consider that a little bit of white gouache added into some of your green. So that was with oxide of chromium, which is sort of one of my favorite ways of doing it. Here is going to be the same thing mixed with this is some serpentine genuine, and I'm going to mix that with a little bit of white. It's a little bit more yellowy. So different greens will give you sort of a different color with it. But this, for some reason, is just so much easier to work with for me than doing it with just straight transparent watercolor. And I've puzzled around with sort of why that hack, why I have trouble with those greens. I'm really not sure, but consider that as another strategy for handling those pale lichen. But as Susan was saying, that lichen also would be a great place for playing with gouache. Bouncing over to the gallery, are there any other sort of lichen mossy related questions? All right, so let's see what's going on in folks' journals. If you have been having some nature journaling adventures that you can share with the group, that would be really fun. I see that Jack's got something. I see that Avea and Heidi, you've also got something to share, and Walters. Let's start with that. So we're going to go Jack, Avea. Heidi, did you want to share something? Maybe not. Okay. Let's start with Jack. So I'm going to, let's see, you can now unmute yourself and I'm going to add you into the spotlight. Hi there.
Hey.
Good to see you.
So yeah, so I did we were having lunch the other day, and my dad came up the stairs and he said he asked us to see if we could solve the mystery of, he called it the Clucky Hawk. There when we went to the bottom of our hill, there were literally like these hawk feathers everywhere.
Wow.
And I found one blue jay feather, so I'm wondering what happened.
Oh, that is interesting.
And we also heard a hawk in the woods and saw him fly off.
Now, were there wing feathers there as well as breast feathers?
It was just these type of feathers.
Just those type of feathers. Oh, that's so weird. That's so weird. And 35 of them scattered on the ground. I like that you counted them, because it really gives us a sense of, this isn't just I'm losing a few feathers by chance here. Something went down. And it was probably pretty rough on that hawk.
Yeah, and then
Oh, interesting. Oh, and that's your speculation. Great horned owls, they will they can capture, and they are a super predator, and they will take out peregrine falcons and hawks. That is a possible player in this story.
I don't know if that owl had to do anything. I just was practicing with owls.
But it is consider it as in the in our sort of differential diagnosis of possible hypotheses, right? That's one of our beasties that is there as a possibility. Could we see that that owl drawing again? Nice structure, nice texture, and that little gleam in the eye makes that eye feel really wet. That's fun. That's really fun. So did you first do a coat of the sort of on the top of the head? Did you first sort of do the base coat there and then put the details over that after that dried?
Yeah, I did for the top of the head, like on the forehead up there, I did a little bit like alternate colors, alternate shades of Tombow.
That was done with Tombow.
So I did a little bit of that, and then that little like splotch right there, and then I finished it off with a little dash of that color right there.
Okay, great. So that is, let's see, natural sienna.
Yeah.
Cool. That's cool.
And also had, I was watching, just doing some quick sketches of a little woodpecker.
I like that, the back view. That's cool. Shinnies up the branch. Nice job using words and pictures to describe your observations there.
And I didn't get much in on this one. Little, it's cool to watch the seasons go by though, because this little cherry, this little longleaf brown cherry, that little like tan colored cherry, in the summertime I did another page on that when it was green. Where is it?
Yeah, doing the same subject in different seasons is really cool. Or you can go to the same hillside and draw that same landscape in different seasons. Or so the same cherry.
That's the same berry. That's
the same berry. Oh, wow.
But that's in, well, that's September. That's that berry in last September.
Oh, that's really interesting. Look at, I like that also your use of the little highlight there. Just you can get a sense of the texture of that. Hold on, was that with a gel pen?
That's a white colored pencil.
That's a white colored pencil. Yeah, very effective for giving you that, you get a sense of the texture of that.
And then,
all right, there's our mossy textures today and the lichen moment. I'm liking what we've got going on here.
That's it.
All right, Jack, thank you so much for sharing that. What an interesting story that is with those feathers. It's neat to find these mysteries. Like the next time that you come across a place where there's a number of hawk feathers, because you did that kind of careful study there, the details of this mystery are going to pop into your head in a way that they totally wouldn't if you just kind of gone like, oh yeah, that's weird, right? If you hadn't done that journal page, the next time you'd see something like that, you would say to yourself like, huh, I've never seen something like this before. But really good work collecting those clues. I wonder if that might have been could have been a great horned owl. Do you have a great horned owl in your neighborhood?
Not that I know of. A couple last year, at like midnight, I think my mom was up and she saw a great horned owl in our front yard. A couple nights in a row, kind of just like walking around and pecking at the ground. And in the morning, we found the little holes where he had pecked. But that was like last year, so I don't know. And I wonder if a blue jay had anything to do with it too, because there was one blue jay feather there too.
One blue jay feather. Yeah, I could see a blue jay kind of hassling a hawk, and the hawk just kind of going like ah, and then fluttering off and losing a feather. But losing 35, that's crazy. That's crazy. What a neat mystery. I like it. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
All right. We're going to bounce over to Vea. Hi there.
Hi there. Hi
What's
there.
happening in your journal?
Well, first of all, today was really, really fun. I was liking it. And I don't know if anybody else has heard the poem about how one day Alice Alga met Freddie Fungus and they took a liking to each other, but now the relationship is on the rocks. Nobody else has heard of that one. Yeah, yesterday I decided to do something scary because we love to experiment with things. And so I could totally use some advice about if you have any recommendations. So I had this one page that I did a while ago on a field trip with some friends, and it involved a spider web. And I decided to color it in yesterday because I'd be crazy. So
that's fun.
If you have any recommendations, because I feel like I made it flat. So I'm trying to figure out what I ought to do to it to make
well, but also what you got was this wonderful stained glass effect. Because you're as you fill in those different areas, you kind of get all these sort of different sort of wet and wet patterns bleeding into each other. And that took some crazy patience. That is really fun. I really like the effect of that.
Thank you.
One hack for doing something like this. So yeah. Is let's see, where is, and this will work on some kinds of paper and not on others. But Prismacolor pencils
Nice.
are a little bit waxy, or very, very waxy. Right. So we can often use that to our spiderly advantage. Let me see here. So let's say I have there's a branch that is going to come up here, and there's another branch out here. And between them is this wonderful spider web. What I'm going to do is I first on the web, I'm going to look at like what are some of the major strands that are holding this together. Put those in, and see, this one is going to have comes up here to there, and I'm going to, again, I don't know if this will work on this paper here. And we're gonna, let's give this, it made also one of these across the top.
It's occurring to me after the fact that I probably could have done this on toned paper, but I didn't know I was going to be seeing spiders that day.
Yeah, toned paper is a great solution. So toned paper.
What I wound up doing is at first I drew it just in my normal graphite pencil. And when I got home, you know, those weird marker pencil thingies that you use to mark, not Tupperware, like china or plates, you know, the ones that you write on them with.
Yeah.
I think they're called like grease something or other. I don't know, but I used a white one of those to try to mark over my lines. But this looks a lot more efficient how you're doing it.
We'll see if it works on this paper. Because if I tilt this at some angles, I can see that I have my spider web drawn on there. And now drum roll, I'm going to pick a really dark value color. So I'm going to go for some perylene green here and probably mix that with some indanthrone blue. So I've got something that's really dark. And
That is so cool. You just made Charlotte's Web. So cool.
and it's working better in some places than others. Let's see if I can make this a little bit darker. And sometimes what you can do when you first put stuff like this down, let me zoom on this. All right, so you see some of these are, I've got white lines, and other places I've got, I have a disappointingly kind of green line. Sometimes I can just take a clean brush with water in it and then just draw it along.
That's how.
All right, so in this one here, I've got a clean brush. I'm going to stroke it. So what I'm doing is I'm rubbing along there, then cleaning the paint off my brush, trying to get this back to more of a.
And so it looks like you make sure that you did the color all over first before doing that. I've done the thing before where I try to make a little bit of color, and then instead of continuing on, I stop and I try to take off the color of the individual strands, and it just winds up looking like a mess. But the way you're doing it is smart and strategic. That's really, really cool, Jack.
There's a, see if I can get it in some of these. Yeah.
It looks like it just catches the light.
Yeah, you get the sort of the sense that part of that strand is catching the light. And then if there are parts that aren't, you can say, well, that's the way I intended it. I just wanted to show that that one was.
And that's how nature does it too. So
another thing you can do is on top of paper like this, you can, once it's dry, you'd be able to put in
here
comes the gel pen.
Yep.
And also if there are dew droplets. So it's going to look better if my line is not totally hard, like a hard stock white line is not going to look as good as one that is someplace catching the light and some places, it's appearing and disappearing.
I think that might be where I went wrong, is that I did the thing where I got too excited about my gel pen, and some of the lines are a bit too solid. I think that might be, thank you.
And you can do this. And put in those little dewdrops.
So cool.
But I really like the effect that you got by painting in between all those little spaces.
Thank you.
It has this just a beautiful like mosaic effect, and
Yeah.
I really think that's stunning.
Thank you.
That's really fun.
And thank you for the awesome tips on the spider web. Now I want to go play with more spider webs without messing them up, obviously.
with all respect to the spiders, we're going to take care of your web, and we get to check you out. Yeah, having a dark thing in the background, and you can let that be kind of a playful wet and wet wash.
And then I just want to kind of get in here, and you'll see that there's often like a central hub that is a little spiral. And then they don't do spiral all the way around. Then they'll do other places where they just kind of come across like this. You go back and forth and do this, then this, these little sections. It's fun to watch us. If you ever have, if you're an early riser and there's a spider, a web weaving spider that is near, like out in your garden or in a place that you know, get up early, make yourself kind of a warm thermos of tea, and get out there and spend some time in the morning. And over the course of a few hours, the spiders, they rebuild that web each day. And how they do it is fascinating. Some of the most interesting things are how they get these strands, like how do they build the original frameworks? It's fun, and you can go online and see these things sped up. But if you actually were to take the time yourself, it kind of is this, it gives you a morning what would it be like to sort of take the morning at the pace of the spider and just sort of sit with it and watch it as it constructs this incredible thing in the dark sometimes. And then the morning light comes out, the dew, so they make it in time for, I'm going to build the spider web and then the dew's going to fall on it. And it can be chilly, but beautiful.
I wonder if all spiders do that. If the ones that I was observing that day do this weird thing. They're called labyrinth orb weavers, and so they build this house out of leaves, oftentimes ceanothus or coyote brush leaves. I've heard of people, I think Melinda calls them hat spiders or tent spiders, but you can see the little legs kind of dangling out if you look at just the right angle. And they live in this thing. And then I didn't notice this until a friend pointed it out, but there's this thick, because it looks like a huge old mess of a web, but there's method to their madness. And they have this thicker strand that goes directly from their house out into the one neat part of the web that looks just like a fisherman's net, kind of funneled out here. And I found out, unfortunately, by experience, and I felt badly for the poor spider's web after, but this particular web has stickier thread than the others. You touch it and it doesn't want to let go of you. And so that's where they catch their flies. And then you see them zip down, wrap up their parcel, and then zip right back up this thick strand right here. And so I'm wondering what time of year they build them and if they ever rebuild too. So I start noticing them in the summer. So my plan is to go out and spy on some labyrinth orb weavers some really, really early morning, like you're saying. I think it'd be really fun.
Those are really cool spiders. So they most of the tangle and they don't reconstruct, but very often the orb structure will be remade for catching prey the next day.
Cool. Thank you.
I love those labyrinth spiders. I've seen the same thing. You first think it's just this jumbly tangle, like black widows. They just make a jumbly tangle, and some some spiders have just these big jumbly tangles, but then there's this, in the middle of that jumbly tangle, there's this little section, this perfect little orbito.
I love it.
That's fun.
You reminded me. I apologize. One more thing.
No.
I forgot to announce an event happening on next Monday. If you all were here on Thursday for Annette's Starters Club inauguration, I remembered it because I was looking at my journal and I found my page where I was drawing my cat during our 1 minute. So yeah, Starters Club. Start and start and start again. And if you would like, please join Annette, who will be teaching that, I believe, 10 o'clock Pacific time every Monday from now on. So that's another thing. And spread the word to any new nature journalers that you know. Thank you.
That's a great idea. Yeah, this is going to be really fun. This is going to help with sort of motivation. You're going to find community. I think you're going to find that this experience is a door that you're going to want to step through.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jack.
Thank you. Let me see. We had, I see that we have Valters and Ray Bonto have items to share. I'm going to first bring up Valters, then we're going to bounce over to you, Ray Bonto. Okay. Let's see. I'm going to add Spotlight and now you can unmute.
Yeah, hi.
Hey there, good to see you.
Wanted to show this. Now the hoopos, the birds with the crests are now showing up. Sorry?
I said pops.
Yeah, pops, yes, are showing up more often now. So.
Oh! Whoa!
Did some sketches of them. This was these are separate days. This one was singing kind of on a stone wall, and I noticed when it was kind of singing, doing its woo woo woo, it was like bending its neck, and it's I don't know what you call it. It's kind of back of the neck, rising up kind of into a little ball.
The nape.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah, the nape, yeah.
Yeah.
In some songbirds, their throat kind of puffs up. But this one was, rising its nape.
So the head was turned down, and you could see the back of the neck puffing up in singing.
Yeah.
Oh, how interesting!
I thought maybe it's because of the bone somehow. I don't know, or maybe because it's bending down, it cannot puff up its throat.
Did you see the back of the neck? Was it vibrating as the bird was doing its whoop whoop whoop?
I don't think
or was it static?
The bird when it did its ooh, 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 it was just kind of all going like this, but didn't see anything happening back there. So
that's cool. That's really neat.
Yeah, and this one was on the 1 minute sketch that we did. I did go a bit too far. I did about 10 minutes, but I sketched this kind of dead coral that I found, and that one was. And this one was on a separate day when I was going around, and it kind of flew off from a field and landed on a rock. And I had taken my telescope. I usually take my binoculars, but I had taken my telescope, and it sat on the rock there, and it was preening. So. Oh,
what a gift! What a gift! It sort of reminds me of. I was just reading the John Busby's Mallorca book last night.
Yeah.
And, he's at one point looking at these preening shags, and makes this comment about what a gift the preening bird is for a collector of bird shapes.
Mm-hmm.
And that actually made me think of you. And then you bring this one up, and you're being a collector of bird shapes. That is so cool. That is so cool.
I really like that phrase. It's just being so kind of like, like I don't know, casual about it. It's a collector of bird shapes. That's it. Yeah.
Oh,
But
hey, and by the way, everybody, Valters and I are going to do a workshop together where we're going to geek out on John Busby and kind of look for it, sort of try to figure out what are things that what really inspires us about it, and then and what are kind of techniques that we can draw from analyzing Busby's sketches. That's going to be fun. That's going to be
And then this couple of shorebirds here, and a quick ballpoint pen value study of the ringed plover. Yeah,
that's a neat bird. Plovers have such these little plovers. I love that shape. Just a little their stockiness, the way there's the broken necklace. And you've got the forehead, absolutely got the forehead of that steep plover forehead. That really makes it look plovery.
Yeah, I find that shrikes are going pretty well for me, and these plovers. So I don't know. They kind of have like a very distinctive, I guess, form. So it's kind of easier to remember and show them. And this was a little kind of like a scenic sketch of this wire post. Yeah. And two canary birds sitting on it, and it just looked so kind of casual and natural, because back home in Latvia we have like house sparrows sitting and pigeons sitting, and well, those are birds too, but it's just you're in a small town and there are canary birds sitting on wires, so
That's really fun.
So it was just kind of a little sketch to remember. Yeah, but that's all.
Oh, that's really good. That's really good. At some point, you're going to have a chance to do some exploring in Africa. And down there is an incredible radiation of shrike species. And there are all these cool shrikes, and they all look like they've all got shrike cool. And just great contrasting patterns, and some of like rufous spots on them. And
there are some
in the United States we have just two shrikes, but over there they do shrikes, right, and kingfishers. Who knew there could be so many different kinds of kingfishers?
I have this book, All Birds of the World. Yeah, it by Lynx publishing, published by Lynx books, and I open up and kingfishers. There are like 100 species. They're called these paradise kingfishers with like these long tails, like the paradise flycatchers. There's
whoa! I'm gonna have to look this up. A paradise kingfisher.
Something, I think it was, paradise kingfisher, and they got these long kind of tails. I think it was a paradise kingfisher, like the paradise flycatcher.
I'm looking at one right now. Oh my goodness. We have to go to New Guinea. We have to go drop everything and go to, and then there's the buff-breasted paradise kingfisher too, if that wasn't enough. Oh yeah, let's take paradise flycatcher and mix it in with just a little bit of kingfisher. And then what's also weird about a bunch of these kingfishers is that they're not fishing. They're terrestrial predators. Like, didn't they get the memo? Like, we put kingfisher, we put fish in your name.
Fisher. Yeah.
Like, didn't you read?
And he's catching mice and lizards.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very strange. But
thank you. That bird was not on my radar, and now I think I need to go to New Guinea.
Yeah, hopefully Tanzania. Hopefully.
Yeah.
Something.
So, 2023, we're taking a nature journaler expedition to Tanzania. And that'll be big fun. This time we're going to be there when birds will be in their breeding plumage. And also when the wildebeest will be all having their babies.
Yeah.
That's going to be nuts.
Hopefully I can make it. Hopefully.
If you need financial support on that, let me know.
It's
And
on that case, it's all right. Just there are a lot of vaccines that you have to take, and a lot of kind of so for me, maybe I'm still a bit younger and now, so have to make a decision on that. But
yeah,
maybe.
Yeah. Yep. The vaccines have been tested on lots and lots and lots and lots.
Yep.
Of people. It would be amazing to be there with you. There's another Shrek. There's another Shrek. There's another Shrek. It's Shrek-tastic.
Yeah. Hopefully.
Thank you so much for sharing that. You've got your Plover game on. Love that little sketch of the canaries out there acting like house sparrows. And that's really fun.
Thank you.
Let's bounce to London. Ray Bonto, it's good to see you. You can now unmute yourself.
Great to see you. Well, I've been doing more nature journaling than usual, so
Oh, good. I'm going to minimize my screen so that we can make your journal bigger. And there we go.
yeah, before we get to those,
Nice value range, really nice value range. What pencil are you using here? Is this a 2B or you've got your super dark ones?
ballpoint pen.
Oh, that's a ballpoint pen.
Yeah.
All right, mad props. So getting this value range out of a ballpoint pen, you saw it here, folks. This is great. This is really good. That is something that I really do love about ballpoints, is that they do allow you to have. I like that sense of all those subtle values up there in that inset, and also on the clump. That's fun.
Yeah. So I saw some of these. Well, I was first starting with pigeons.
Yes.
But then something caused me to look the other way. Because there was a lot of commotion of small little birds.
Oh, that's always a good thing. That's always a good sign. This is going to be exciting.
I just looked, and there was this huge flock of starlings.
Oh, interesting.
And I noticed when I came closer, well, obviously they got frightened, but they didn't go very, very far. They took off all in one clump.
Mm-hmm.
And when they realized that I wasn't really a danger, they came down one by one.
Oh, that's interesting. So they
and then when I came closer,
in a flock, and then
they
came
in one. And when I came even closer, they took off in one. Then they came down one by one.
Back to the same tree.
Yeah.
That is an interesting behavior observation. I wonder if what is going on is that to avoid the predator, you all need there's an urgency for everybody getting out of there together. And if you take off in a flock, you have the advantage of the predator avoidance capacity of flocking behavior. Flocking helps you avoid aerial predators really effectively. And but kind of for the return trip, there's no urgency to kind of synchronize that. And so you can trickle in one at a time.
And also, there's also the possibility that the brave one comes down.
Mm-hmm.
There's a small possibility that I may be a danger. So if I do pounce on that one, the others know not to come down.
Yes. Oh, that makes sense to me. It's kind of like, so somebody's got to be the first one back. We want to kind of get back to our perch, but so brave starling drops in and it looks okay for Charlie. All right. So then, Sally goes in, looks all right for her too. And then you can trickle in. So maybe there's also, that's interesting. So there may be an advantage to flying out in a cluster and coming back individually. That's really interesting. I like how you're exploring and documenting not just the structure and shape of these birds, but also their ethology, their behavior. You're getting into these, you're documenting behavioral studies in these birds. And I like the way you're thinking about the possibilities of what would the implications be of those different kinds of behavior. That's neat. Let's see, I'm going to remove me. Oh.
There's this little small place nobody ever goes through, but you're allowed. It's just a flight of steps through 2 bushes, quite well hidden. And ever since I buried that tit, the dead bird, I decided to go and see. Obviously, the packet was safely inside, so I didn't know if it was there or not. But I just went there, and I looked to my side, and there was this clump of berries.
Let's see. Let's take a look at it again. Oh, nice value range. Everybody check out the ones. So notice in that little top sketch, one done light, one medium value, one dark, right? And that variation makes that part of the illustration much more interesting. We talked earlier about line variation. Notice how Ray Bonto's lines sometimes punching in a line, sometimes lighter. And look at how this is not just a generic stick. This is the specific twig that we're looking at. And look at those nuances in where the spikes are coming out and where it changes angles. You really can't make stuff up like this very effectively at all. Whenever I've tried to make up a twig, it always looks like a made up twig. This looks like as we really see things. So if you find yourself, just a little branch, really documenting that and the little subtle nuances of what it does, that's great. Finally, take a look at these question chains. It's got spikes. Why? Right? Who eats these branches? So you can see Ray Bonto's thinking out loud. So 3 different questions on this page. And those question chains like that and curiosity chains really helps you often take an observation and find the question that is behind it. So why did these evolve all these spikes on the stems, on the branches? That's really interesting. Love it.
Also, some of the berries were in different stages. I don't know which is rotten or not, or which is unripe.
The dark red, the black one, and the red one. Yep.
Yeah, this probably is rotten by the look of it, all fallen apart. This is probably, if this is ripe, then this is not ripe. But if this is ripe, then both of these are rotten.
Ah, yeah. So why are they rotting on the vine here? How also are you getting all these different stages all together? Did they bloom at different times? Were they pollinated at different times? I wonder what is making, or is it their angle towards the sunlight? All those are possibilities of why we're getting those different stages. This is really exciting journaling. What else is happening in your notebook?
Yep, that fungi that I visited
Yes.
last
Have you
time.
noticed any changes in it?
Yeah, plenty. A new bit had grown,
Mhm.
and plus the color had changed. Before it was nice and neat. The dark bit was all brownish black,
Yeah.
and this was plain white. Now this bit I find has gone orange and green and yellow and white, and this bit is just is a little more the same but a little more brownish.
That's cool. So I'm noticing some nice curiosity chains on your page as you are coming up with questions and putting the exclamation points about the most important observations that you've made. Folks, also observe the way you know the planes of these different surfaces on the top of this fungus because of the directions of the pencil strokes. That really kind of helps you sort of see that as a flat plane, then kind of curving over, coming in flat and then curving because of the direction of the lines of the pencil strokes. If these were just kind of done all softly, smoothly blended together, you wouldn't get that contour sense of this, of those planes. So very effective use of contour shading.
Yeah, and that's just a little, I don't know what, nettle or something of that sort.
It could very well be. It's got those opposite leaves. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's fun.
Um,
Do you have stinging nettle? Do your nettles sting out where you are, or are your nettles non-stinging nettles?
yes, they are. We have got stinging nettles. Yes. At like first you don't realize you're stung, and then there's this tiny itch.
Ah, well, ours have quite a bite to them.
Eh.
That's cool.
And then where did that bit go? Yeah, it's the okay. Do this one. So I was just waiting for the pigeons to come because I wasn't finding anything. When suddenly a squirrel ran up a tree and then just fell off from 30 feet high and landed back safely.
Oh, wow. Oops.
And went back up the tree as if nothing had happened.
Wow. Sorry, can't stay. So look at that. I love that. Wow. That's so cool. I love the little thought bubbles on the squirrels here. That little squirrel falling, that you would only have seen that posture for a second, but looking at that just sort of is an indication to me that you've also kind of understand the anatomy of these things. That's a kind of quick squirrel moment that really shows your understanding of the structure there. That's neat.
Yeah. And something very unusual happened then. After that, I was waiting some more when I heard this rustle from behind a tree and a fox came out.
Oh, oh, whoa.
And then it walked across the field, squeezed through the bars in the park, crossed the road, I tried signaling to the drivers to stop, but they stopped anyway.
Oh, good, good, good.
And it crossed the road and then went around the post office. I don't know where.
That is so exciting. Oh, wow. A little white tail tip. Oh, that really feels like a fox to me. Oh, you're such a adept observer. This comes through the practice that you've been putting in. Folks, notice that sort of style for kind of getting the area of tone sort of darker back, lighter belly. So just quick unidirectional pencil lines there, kind of quickly kind of getting in that tone. So this isn't a drawing that you're stopping and fussing on. Notice that the head was originally drawn a little bit longer, and then he drew over that with heavier lines. Didn't even get in and erase the other lines, but just reinforced the ones which he wanted to show. Then that's a great speed sketching approach.
Yeah, and I've been seeing this new birds, probably are some sort of thrush.
It's got that head up posture that thrushes often do. That's cool. It'd be fun to get to find this one and sort of see what other details we can see on its body.
And that's a robin. So which just popped out.
Yep. And so for folks who are in the United States, you might be saying, but wait, that doesn't look really like the proportions of a robin. This is the English robin, which is a totally different kind of bird. And with these proportions. So these are the exact proportions of the English robin that you're looking at right there.
Yeah, and then I found that the pigeon mating season had started.
Oh, that's fun. Oh, look at the one with the, where it's going through all those different poses. That pigeon is really showing off.
Oh, that's doing the dance.
Yep.
Like that.
Come on,
then
take
that.
me. That's so fun.
And that's the female, and all females always seem to hate, tell the males, go away, I don't care.
Oh, that's really fun.
And the displays puff up the neck
Yeah.
and then spread out the tail. And then wait till a female comes close to you, and then you start chasing it.
Do you ever get to see them doing that little spinning thing on the ground? Where the males kind of run around in a little circle?
Yes.
Oh, that's fun. This is great. So people were asking before about, actually, what was it you who were asking about at the start of it? Somebody suggested a topic.
Yeah, it was me.
Looking at mating behavior, in this case, pigeons. Oh, that was you. I see why you're interested in that. But I think the strategy, you could probably teach the course on doing this, because you are doing all the strategies that I would suggest that people do. So lots of sketches. We've got quick sketches. We've got sketches where you're kind of having these kind of composite ones where multiple poses seen in a single bird. Adding in written notes. I'm seeing storyboard cartoons there of first this, then this, then this. So really great ways of documenting behavior. These are excellent ways of showing that.
And I found this strange. They did something very strange. One of the pigeons.
What was that?
Yeah. One pigeon was preening, and this other pigeon just came up and pecked it right in the neck.
Oh, that's messed up.
Yes, and then started chasing it. I don't know what it was
Wow.
doing.
Like, couldn't you just at least just puff yourself up and spin in a circle? We've been impressed, but you have to peck me in the neck. Wow.
And yeah, still few left. Yeah, just one more from today.
All right. So pigeon season has started. It's interesting. When I last checked in with your pigeons, your big focus was on their plumage, and now you're getting all the subtleties of their behavior. And it's neat to see the way that your interests shift and the way that that then is reflected on the pages of your journal.
This is the full display. Tail spread, neck puffed.
Oh, that's so much fun. That's
Yeah.
so much fun.
And then one of the males was chasing a female. The female doing its usual declining act, running away. The male decided to try to fly onto her back, but she was too quick. Like so. But by the time he got down, the female was somewhere else.
Ah, rookie move. Wow. This is so interesting to, what also a fun sign that spring is coming. And you're seeing that reflected in the behavior of the pigeons that you've watched so carefully. Look at, folks, all these ideas here for documenting variations in behavior. That's really exciting.
I
Then you're
also
looking
did
at the
these.
preening style.
Yeah, one is around the primaries, which is slightly up in the wing and poke your head in.
Mm-hmm.
And the other is from on the top of the wing, open the wing, pull the wing up and poke your head in from underneath.
Mm-hmm.
And this one is quite interesting. Spread out your tail, turn it 90 degrees with your head, and then scratch.
That is really cool. I love having all these preening positions in the little call out boxes on the side of the page. I mean, just folks, like, think of the intensity of observation that is going on here. This is really looking hard. This is really wondering, and all these creative ways to document and describe what you see. This is.
And then I decided to do some flight because how they prevent crashing into something, because I saw they lean their full wing against, they put their full weight against the spot they don't want to land, and then they just stop.
Yeah. When the flying abilities of pigeons are really amazing. They are incredibly good flyers. When I was at the University of Montana, there's a professor there named Ken Dial, and his thing was, at that point, was studying flight, and he would put all these barriers down the hallways, and all these barriers that he would set up, and all of these cameras, and then these pigeons who were also hooked up to all sorts of probes and things, who would then fly down the hallway to get a treat. And he recorded just sort of the nuances of how do they maneuver, and ended up our Air Force brought him out to talk to their airplane designers and pilots. And one of the things he was explaining to them, that the best, high performance aircraft that you have can do, doesn't even come close to comparing sort of the aerobatic abilities of what these pigeons can do, because all the different surfaces of their bodies can affect their flight. So they're just instead of having a few flaps, they've got all these different systems, and it's really beautiful. Something that he did that was really interesting. I'm going to put a link in the chat here. And let's see. So I'm first going to put in a I'm going to put in a link to a YouTube video that he also made these wind tunnels and would have all these different birds, magpies and pigeons, train them to fly in these wind tunnels. So here's a YouTube video of him doing some of that research. But if I can find it, there he has a the flight. Oh wait, this might be it. This might be it. I hope this is the web page of. I'll have to try to find it another time. But they've just done these amazing studies in kind of breaking down the strategies that these birds use for flight, and they so both in wind tunnels, looking at birds in flight, as well as kind of going down obstacle courses. But that'd be kind of a fun thing to check out. I'm going to see if I can find any. Well, I don't want to waste your time with me kind of looking around on the web, but so the name to search for is Kenneth Dial, D-I-A-L, and see if you can find some of the stuff that he did in the flight lab, and the videos that came from that are just fascinating, and this gave us such a deeper insight into the aerodynamic and kinematic strategies of pigeons. Oh, wait a minute. Speaking of kinematic, for people who want to geek out, here's a journal article all about how pigeons fly. And he discovered that a bunch of things that people had thought about the way that that birds fly were not accurate. And that's really neat. And he had the data to back it up. So that last one is a journal article that is, it goes over my head. But there are other parts of it you can go like, oh yeah, and this diagram, I can totally dig on that. It'll be fun. So you want to check that out. I recommend you do.
Yeah. Could I tell you a short little anecdote about?
Yes, please.
Yes. Whenever I go out, well, I've been watching the pigeons for nearly a year, so they always want to get drawn. When I go there, every time 40 or 50 pigeons flock. Unusually today it was 70 or 80. But one day, one pigeon got so excited, it risked a crash with me. It flew, and then it found it had come too close. And when it was just a foot away, well, and then it just went like that, fell back.
Wow. So it was coming right in, and you then realized I need to turn, and at the last moment stopped and went in
Yeah.
the direction. That's cool. Yeah, they're amazingly good flyers. Amazingly good flyers. Thank you so much for the stories, and thank you so much for those pages, folks. If you were wondering about strategies for thinking about how would you start to sketch things that are moving, look at the depth of thought behind those pages, which we just had a chance to see. That is really inspiring. Actually, Ray Bonto, would you be interested in working with me to together to come up with a workshop that we would co-teach on drawing sort of behaviors, postures, movements of things, maybe sort of just as kind of to help unpack for folks what you're doing with your pigeon studies. I think that would be a really rich discussion if you'd be interested in it.
Yeah.
You'd be down with
Yeah,
that?
I could. Yeah, I could.
Great. Send me an email. And we'll hatch some wicked plans, and we'll come up with a really cool workshop together. I would love to do that with you.
Yeah. Could you? I think you'd better ask my dad.
Okay.
When
Or why don't you talk to your pa about it, talk to Dad about it, and see if that feels comfortable to you folks. And if so, game on. If not, no pressure. But I think we could have some fun with that.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing those pages. That was really, really inspiring. Susan, it's great to see you. You may now unmute and let me bring you into the spotlight. Hi there.
Hello again. I had a more something to show, and also more general watercolor question, which is why I didn't ask earlier. But first, I just wanted to note to Robanto or anybody else who's interested, if you're looking for some more light reading on the subject of pigeons, have you heard of this book by Rosemary Moscow, who is a nature writer and cartoonist? And it's called A Pocket Guide to Pigeon Watching. And it's all about like the history of humans and pigeons and all kinds of pigeon biology and behavior and everything you ever want to know about pigeons. She's a really entertaining and interesting writer. And also her nature comics are so great. And I think that everybody here would relate to basically all of them. So her comics are on the website Bird and Moon. And there was one just recently that showed two people sort of starting off on a trail, and then one says, "Wow, I've never gone on a hike with a naturalist before. I'm sure I'll learn so much. I hope I brought enough water." And the naturalist says, "I'm sure you did." And then say, "Oh, here's this interesting thing. Here's this interesting thing. Here's this. Here's some deer poop. Here's the fungus on the deer poop. All these things." And then the last panel is, "Wow, we've been out for 3 hours and we've only gone 6 feet."
Yes.
So I feel like we could all relate to that. But anyway, so just this book, A Pocket Guide to Pigeon Watching, and also her nature comics generally, by Rosemary Moscow, I think would be of interest to lots of us here. But yeah,
That's great, dude. I'll have to go check that out, and also check out her comics. Do you think that she might be an interesting candidate for a speaker at Wild Wonder?
I mean, I don't know her personally, but I would imagine so. I think she's definitely is an interesting nature writer and does a lot of nature educating and art and all of those things. So I would imagine, but yeah, definitely check her out. I don't really know anything about her personally, but that would be so awesome.
Right, that would be really fun.
Here.
Awesome. I will check this out. And what is your question about?
Well, so I will show briefly something that I did, and then I will which sort of lead into my question. So been trying to actually go out and do some nature journaling when it's cold, which I don't want to do, but I want to do. So I forced myself to do it. So we had a big snowstorm on Friday, and on Saturday, after I chiseled the car off, I went out, and there's a little trail that's fairly flat, so I figured it's good. And I considered bringing the nature journal on the trail with my paints and or pencil, and then I realized that my fingers would probably freeze off. So in the end, I did not actually bring it on the trail, even though there was a cool tree with lots of woodpecker holes in it. But it'll be there in spring. But so I came back to the car, and I thought I'll practice doing my watercolors. So this is what I did in the car with the heat blasting. Seeing that. So
yes, isn't it neat the way you think that, putting this much blue on the snow, that it would turn it into, a blue blob. But you really, because you left those whites, you really get the feeling of shadows on snow.
Yeah, and the sun was getting really low, and actually, like this is when I started, it was about like this, and then it very quickly went to all blue because the sun went below the horizon. So I had to kind of like remember where the lights and darks were. But yeah, so it was a lot of fun, and I'm pleased with it as a sort of a quick. Quick. I mean, it was like 40 minutes, but
another thing I want to point out on this one that makes it so successful is, notice that again, the snow feels really bright. And the reason is the contrast. If those trees and other elements had been put in lightly with a light value, even with the same amount of detail, it would not feel like bright snow. But because you pushed the values on the background and the fence there, we really get this sense of of that bright snow where those little white parts are. So that's very successful use of contrast there.
Thank you. And I'm really, if I have done some landscapes, of this sort, usually I'm working from a photo that I've taken, and I'm in the comfort of my own home. But I realized I took some photos of this scene, and because the sun was setting and the snow was very bright, the contrast on my photos on my phone were really difficult. So all of the trees were just all basically in silhouette in the photo. So if it wouldn't have come out the same if I had not actually been there seeing it. Even with the sun setting, I could see color in the trees and everything that I didn't see in the photo. So I'm glad that I did that. And I'm hoping that now that it's actually above freezing, maybe I can possibly go and actually risk my fingertips and do some things outside. But it sounds like this thing that Marley Piper's doing with like that Eva mentioned with the nature journaling in the snow, I might be good tips for me. But so my question is actually really, I think it's about using a water brush and I guess having control of the amount of water in the brush, because I've had more difficulty with this with a water brush than I've had with a regular brush that I'm just dipping in water, where I find like my trees, I don't know how many can look very sort of flat, and like they don't have that sort of the nice edge that I associate when you have a little more water on there. And it almost feels like a lot of this is like, it almost feels like I'm just working with a marker. And, and like same with the blue, and you've got like places where, like it was darker and lighter, maybe because it dried so fast or something. Well, so I found like if I want to do like dry brushing, it seems like my water brush, and I think I have the same water brush as you, but it's like, it has enough water to pick up the paint, but not enough to really have that like wet watercolor effect. And if I squeeze it to try and get more water out, I end up with like a big blob of water.
Bolus, yeah.
Too much. But when you do it, it seems like even on whatever paper you're using that may not be that great of paper, it seems like you do get like just the right amount of wetness. So I guess I'm hoping for some tips on controlling that. The only times I feel like it's successful is when I'm at home and I have the time to like really fiddle with it.
How long have you had this water brush?
A couple of years, but I've only really been doing anything significant with it for the last few months.
Right.
So maybe it's brush miles. I don't know.
No. Here's what we're gonna do. You're going to take your, oh, I'm going to join you on the screen here. So we have our water brush.
Mhm.
We're going to take this part off.
I'm gonna break it, is it?
Right.
Okay, I'm gonna
And
put
then
that down where
what
it's
I'm going to
still
do is I'm going to hold the bristles here, and I'm going to squeeze them and push the tip out. So I've just pushed it down in here. A little black stopper has popped out. I'm going to safely put that down
very
on my
scared I'm
piece of
going to
paper.
break it, but I'll try. I trust you. I'm gonna come out. I'm pretty
And
sure
what
it's the
you're
same
gonna do is
brush.
you're
but I
going
hope
to
it's-
pull out the bristles, and you're going to wash this in a faucet. It may be that there is some, over time, like if you've ever refilled from a pond or something, algae and stuff can grow inside your brush. And then so you take this part out and you wash it, give it a good washing. So again, here's my little brush. And then when you're done, you're going to take it and put it back inside this. And you can pull it so that it comes all the way out.
I'm a little scared because I'm trying to push it. It doesn't want to go, and now it's halfway, and I don't know how to get it back in.
So again, to kind of get it, what I'm going to do is I'm going to, let's see, when you're at this phase, you're going to hold it, and I'm going to push this way in, pa-chunk. And then I keep pushing, and then it's sort of stuck in here. So I'm just going to tap the top here, and then it's starting to come out the bottom. There it is. And then I can grab it on the bottom.
Seems to be
Hold
stuck here. It's gone about 1 millimeter, and now it's stuck.
All right. So feel free to give it some elbow grease. If, while we're messing around with this, you totally destroy it, I'll send you a new one.
I did a new one from my local lovely art supply store that I always like to give them as much money as possible because I'm afraid the big stores are gonna.
Yeah, we gotta support.
But I'm willing to risk it, but well, I may have to fiddle with it and see if I can wiggle it a bit.
So
I think that might be the issue. It's that.
So if it's kind of stuck in here like something, feel free just to kind of squeeze this part and really just kind of go, right? Just squeeze and push. You're going to be pushing that little black stopper out. Feel free to give it a real shove.
They're trying. I think there's the little black thing that's
black
holds
stopper?
the bristles. Yeah, at the tip here, I can get that in, and then it won't go any further. I might need to get a pencil or something to like poke it with. I don't want to keep us here fiddling with brushes, but I can try pushing it out. And then pushing it out.
Yeah. Try just you squeeze this part and use that as your sort of leverage point to kind of go and push it through. And then when that little stopper piece comes out, rinse this off. You also can rinse this off, clean this little stopper piece off. And then what you're going to do is you're going to put the little stopper piece back in. So this is going to be the challenging part. So I'm going to make my screen really big so that everybody can see this next step. All
right. So what I had done is I had pushed this part, punk, like this, gotten this little beastie out. There's my bristles. Rinse that, rinse this, flush this with water. I'm then going to take this piece, put it back in, pull it all the way till it's firmly, snugly at the tip again. And then I'm going to take this piece and I'm going to just drop it back in there. And it's not quite, if you look at it, it's a little bit cattywampus. It's at an angle. It's not in the perfectly aligned position. So I am going to take a pin or something and I'm going to push down on one side. So now it's roughly pointing up towards the end. To get it all the way pushed in, what I do is I put it back on this and I'm going to screw this in. And screwing this in pushes that little stopper back up into the position where it wants to be. So to get this, I first just lined that little thing up and then got it into position by screwing it back onto a brush. And then it's in its cooperative position again. Now, it should be working. Where I don't get too much water. Something I should also say about water brushes is sometimes when I get a brand new water brush, sometimes at the start for the first few hours when I use it, I feel like there's too much water that comes out of it, but that for some reason seems to stop over time. And I'm not sure why that is, but sometimes with a brand new water brush, I'll get it and go like, oh no, you're just a little bit too, I want a little bit less water to kind of come through by capillary action. If I do feel I've got too much water, I just wipe it on a rag and then go about my painting again. I want a little bit of water coming down through to the bristles, but not a big flood. And so that's a way that you can clean a clogged Pentel Aquash water brush.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'll try that. I'm having this. This is the smaller size than yours. I'm not getting a good grip, so I may have to like come in with a very small pair of like pliers and pull from the inside or something. So I'll give that a try, and if I do break it, I can replace it. But yeah, thank you.
If it does break because you messed around with it at my suggestion, just shoot me an email and I will send you a brand new Pentel Aquash water brush.
That's very kind of you, but we'll see. I think we'll be okay. But yeah, I'll give that a try. I think it also may just be a matter of just practicing more and getting more control, because I that's definitely something that I'm trying to work on. So we'll see. And I do find that when I'm at home and have the luxury of time and I'm not trying to balance things on my knees and all that stuff, then I can take the time. I can like use my palette and really like get more of a sort of a puddle of paint that I can then use, and then I do have a little more control, I feel, of like how much water is in there and what the consistency is. It's just in the field I definitely would like to have that control. So I'll definitely try and pull it apart and wash it, and also practice more and see what happens. So thank you.
Have fun with that. That's great. Good to see you. So, my dear friends, we are, it is lunchtime here in San Mateo. And so I'm about to go get myself some snacks. And I hope that this was a useful workshop for you, that you had some fun with moss. I hope you can join me perhaps tomorrow. We're going to have an interesting discussion in the educators forum about talking about grief, sorrow, and loss, and how we can, as educators, grapple with that with our students, and the role of the journal in that. We're also Thursday, a workshop on drawing hummingbirds that I think you will find absolutely delightful. I just wanted to share with you this kind of go out with one thought, and so Friday's class is going to be hummingbirds. So I hope that you folks will come join us. They're absolutely delightful little birdies. And I will talk to you all soon. Thank you so much for being here and being part of this community. Be well, take care of each other. Let's take care of nature. And I look forward to adventuring with you again soon. Be well.